Welcome to the video lesson 9 gold medals of secondary English. After completing this lesson, learners, you will be able to state the central idea of the poem, state how the players displayed their sensitivity towards one another, pick relevant words to certain ideas presented in the poem, sum up the incident described in the poem, pick lines from the poem where a sound has been repeated, pick words from the poem that often go together in pairs, give the meanings of the metaphors used in the poem, use words that can be used as verbs and nouns in the sentences of your own, explain the significance of the title of the poem, and enjoy reading poetry and say how it is different from prose. Learners, let's come to the introduction. This poem is written by, or I would say it is composed by, David Roth. Was born in Bloomington, Indiana, and is an American rock vocalist, songwriter, actor, author, and former radio personality. In 2007, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Roth is best known as the original 1974 to 1985 and current 2006 to present lead singer of the Southern California-based hard rock band Van Halen. After more than 2 decades apart, Roth rejoined Van Halen in 2006 for a North American tour that became the highest grossing in the band's history and one of the highest grossing of that year. In 2012, Roth and Van Halen released the critically successful comeback album, A Different Kind of Truth. So learners, through this we get to know that Roth is a master of many areas. His poem 9 Gold Medals is one of his finely composed poems. Now, idea of the poem, the core meaning. Olympics are held every 4 years. Athletes from all over the world train hard to participate in this event. Winning a medal in the Olympics is the ultimate goal of every athlete of the world. However, the setting or the scene of this poem is that of Special Olympics. In these Olympics, differently abled persons who have some problems in a particular part of the body participate in various sports events. The contestants put in a lot of preparation and practice. Everyone hopes to win a medal. The spectators are as excited as the contestants. They cheer and encourage the contestants. Of all the events in Olympics, the 100-meter race is the most prestigious. The athlete who wins it is remembered as the fastest man in the world. So for Special Olympics mentioned in the poem, this is the final event, hence the most prestigious. The 100-yard race is about to begin. The athletes take their positions at the starting blocks. They begin to run immediately after the starting pistol is fired. However, one of them is unable to run and falls on the track. The action has begun and already one episode has taken place. Notice while the 9th, who is the smallest, falls down. He cries out with pain of disappointment. He has trained hard, but doesn't get the opportunity to show his talent. All his dreams of winning the medal are broken and destroyed. When the remaining 8 contestants saw him fall, they, instead of continuing the race, came to the help of the fellow contestant. All the athletes had dreamt of winning the medal. However, they readily, for their dream, come forward to help the boy to his feet. Then all the 9 contestants walked hand in hand to finish the line. The audience was also moved by the exemplary behavior of the contestants that it stood up and clapped. There were now 9 winners instead of 1, and each was given a gold medal. Empathy is the capacity to understand another person's experience from his point of view. Simply stated, empathy is the ability to put oneself in another's shoes. That is exactly what the 8 contestants had done. One look at the fallen contestants had forced them to think, what would I have felt if I had fallen? And they knew exactly what they had to do. By awarding gold medals to all 9 contestants, the authorities honored their display of empathy, helpful nature, and human values. The poem describes a very moving yet inspiring story of 9 handicapped athletes who were participating in a Special Olympics for the handicapped. The athletes had come from different parts of the world and had practiced hard for the competition. When the race began, all athletes tried to run as best as they could. One young athlete, as I said earlier, fell down midway. For a minute, it appeared to him that he has lost the race. The spectators too thought he was out of the race. But then something unexpected happened. When the other 8 athletes realized that one of the participants had fallen, they had all stopped, turned around, walked up to the fallen athlete, lifted him up, and finally all 9 held hands and walked to the finish line together. The judges and the spectators were confused, but soon they all stood up to give a standing ovation to the 9 athletes. This was indeed a rare spectacle. Such a thing had never happened before. The judges discussed amongst themselves and decided they were all winners. All of them were given a gold medal each. Now, the most important lesson we get from this poem is loud and clear, that we can all be winners if we work together and empathize with each other instead of competing with to defeat and rejoice in our single victory. Now, as I told you, David Roth was born in Bloomington, Indiana. His father was a doctor. David was fond of music. When the family moved to California, he joined Pasadena Community College, where he met up Van Halen brothers and Michael Anthony. He was a multifarious person. Now, learners, taking this background of David Roth and the idea of the poem, let us read the poem once through to get the fair idea of what the poem is about. 9 gold medals by David Roth. The athletes had come from all over the country to run for the gold, for the silver and bronze. Many weeks and months of training, all coming down to these games. The spectators gathered around the old field to cheer on all the young women and men. The final event of the day was approaching. Excitement grew high to begin. The blocks were all lined up for those who would use them, the 100-yard dash and the race to be run. These were 9 resolved athletes in back of the starting line, poised for the sound of the gun. The signal was given, the pistol exploded, and so did the runners all charging ahead. But the smallest among them, he stumbled and staggered and fell to the asphalt instead. He gave out a cry in frustration and anguish. His dreams and his efforts all dashed in the dirt. But as sure as I am standing here telling this story, the same goes for what next occurred. The 8 other runners pulled up on their heels, the ones who had trained for so long to compete. One by one, they all turned around and went back to help him and brought the young boy to his feet. Then all the 9 runners joined hands and continued. The 100-yard dash now reduced to a walk, and a banner above that said Special Olympics. Could not have been more on the mark. That's how the race ended with 9 gold medals. They came to the finish line holding hands still, and a standing ovation and 9 beaming faces said more than these words ever will. Now let us paraphrase the poem 9 gold medals. The athletes had come from all over the country to run for the gold, for the silver and bronze. Many weeks and months of training, all coming down to these games. Now over here, learners, 9 handicapped athletes had come from different countries to participate in the Special Olympic Games. They were going to run to compete for the gold, silver and bronze medals, which mean the first, second and third positions. They had undergone vigorous training for many weeks and months for this grand event and for this day. Now coming to the second stanza. The spectators gathered around the old field to cheer on all the young women and men. The final event of the day was approaching. Excitement grew high to begin. Hundreds of thousands of spectators had gathered in the stadium to watch these runners as they come onto the field for their event. All men and women in the stands cheered them. Whole day there were different events which took place. Now it was time for the final event. The athletes took their position and the tracks and the race was about to begin. Coming to the third stanza. The blocks were all lined up for those who would use them, the 100-yard dash and the race to be run. These were 9 resolved athletes in back of the starting line, poised for the sound of the gun. Now learners, this was going to be a 100-meter race. just before the race commenced, the loudspeakers announced the names of the contestants. The 9 athletes stood waiting for the signal. All of them were full of excitement and confidence. They were determined to give their best to win the race. Now they had taken up their position and were waiting for the traditional gunshot to mark the beginning of the race. Coming to the fourth stanza, learners, the signal was given. This is the fourth stanza. The signal was given, the pistol exploded, and so did the runners all charging ahead. But the smallest among them, he stumbled and staggered and fell to the asphalt instead. Finally, the moment arrived. The signal was given when a shot was fired from the gun. As soon as the players heard the shot, they began to run. There was one very young athlete amongst them who had some trouble. He stumbled and staggered and eventually fell down on the ground. Learners, fifth stanza. He gave out a cry in frustration and anguish. His dreams and his efforts all dashed in the dirt. But as sure as I am standing here telling this story, the same goes for what next occurred. Learners, as he fell, he gave out a cry of anguish, pain, and frustration. He thought he had lost the race even before competing. His dreams were dashed to the ground as if it was not he, but his dreams had fell on the ground. The poet at this point adds that what he saw was unbelievable. For a moment he thought he was fantasizing, but then he realized he was not. He was very sure what was actually happening, so strange was the next episode of the race. Learners, sixth stanza for you. The 8 other runners pulled up on their heels, the ones who had trained for so long to compete. One by one, they all turned around and went back to help him and brought the young boy to his feet. Learners, the poet now describes what happened. The moment the other 8 realized that one athlete had fallen, they all stopped in the tracks itself. Even though they had come from different parts of the world and had been practicing hard for this day, and in spite of the fact that they did not know each other, all of them turned around and walked to where this young athlete had fallen down to help him get up on his feet. Seventh stanza. Then all the 9 runners joined hands and continued. The 100-yard dash now reduced to a walk, and a banner above that said Special Olympics could not have been more on the mark. Learners, after lifting him up, all 9 athletes joined hands and walked together to the finishing line. The 100-meter race was reduced to a walk. No one could be declared a winner. As if to add some memorable moments to the race, there was a banner hanging over their heads which announced Special Olympics. It appeared that the flag was ordained to be positioned so strategically just above the finishing line. It added such solemnity to the occasion, as if it was fluttering to salute and pay tribute to all the 9 winners for the wonderful spirit of camaraderie that they had all shown. They empathized with a young athlete. They had indeed risen above narrow geographical and national divides and displayed a wonderful spirit of camaraderie. Eighth stanza. That's how the race ended with 9 gold medals. They came to the finish line holding hands still, and a standing ovation and 9 beaming faces said more than these words ever will. The poet describes the last scene, which was indeed very poignant. All 9 athletes walked to the finishing line, holding hands to show that collective strength is a winning spirit. The banner fluttering high was in happy and rejoicing in the victory of the 9 athletes who had displayed a rare sentiment by forgetting all about their personal gains. They had all sacrificed their prizes and walked hand in hand as true friends would. Learners, let's come to the summary of the poem. We all know what Olympic Games are all about. These games are held every 4 years. This poem talks about Special Olympics, which were organized for the differently abled athletes. 9 such athletes had assembled to participate in the 100-meter race. They had come from different parts of the world. Each had gone through vigorous training program to be able to not just qualify but win the race. We all know that In such sporting event, three positions are declared: the first, second, and the third. They are given a gold, silver, and bronze medal respectively. When the race began and the athletes started to run, one athlete, that was a very young athlete, fell down. He gave a cry of despair and anguish. When he fell on the ground, he felt as though his dreams had come crashing down and he had missed the opportunity. But something happened which took everyone by surprise. All other 8 players turned around to see what had happened. When they saw him on the ground, all of them walked towards him, helped him stand up, and after all, 9 decided to walk together to the finishing line. The judges and the spectators were left spellbound. Never had they seen such a spirit of camaraderie in any game. They all rose to give a standing ovation to the athletes. The judges too were awestruck once the reality registered. In their minds, they too decided to honor the spirit of the helpfulness and cooperation by declaring all 9 to be the winners. All 9 athletes were awarded a gold medal each. This victory symbolized victory of the spirit of empathy, cooperation, and unity. When human beings learn to live together and work together in harmony, there is peace, goodwill, and a sense of joy and achievement. There is a joy in sacrifice and working together collaboratively. Even though the athletes came from different nationalities, they displayed to the world a sense of universal brotherhood. The sports arena was an ideal place to demonstrate that a sporting field brings out the best in every character and in one's character. Coming to the central idea of the poem, learners, the poem brings out the value of empathy. All the athletes, despite coming from different countries and different backgrounds, undergoing harsh training to participate and win the Olympic race, actually gave up the idea of their solitary win, but collectively thought of helping the young athlete who had fallen, and then all walked together. They had indeed displayed a unique spirit. The audience was so touched and moved to see this gesture that it gave the athletes a standing ovation. Through this incident, we get to see real human values emerging and the spirit of walking together as one is real winner. Learners, I feel you got some understanding of the poem. Now learners, some special words for you from the poem so that your vocabulary is enriched. Spectators in the poem, which means persons watching, especially an event or sports without taking part. Another word, block. Block, the 2 starting blocks on the ground that runners push their feet against at the beginning of a race. Next word, resolved. Resolved means determined. Next, poised. Poised means ready. Pistol. Here, a starting pistol used to signal the start of a race. Stumbled. Stumbled here means that it hit his foot against something which he began to run and almost fell. Next word, staggered. Staggered means losing balance. Anguish. Anguish means pain and disappointment. Dashed. Dashed means destroyed. Standing ovation here means the spectators stood up from their seats. Beaming. Beaming means very happy. Coming to literary appreciation of the poem, over here, figures of speech. Figure of speech is the use of a words or words diverging from its usual meaning. It can also be a special repetition, arrangement or omission of words with literal meaning, or a phrase with a specialized meaning not based on the literal meaning of the words. Metaphor, simile, hyperbole, personification. Figures of speech often provide emphasis, freshness of expression or clarity. However, clarity may also suffer from their use, as any figure of speech introduces an ambiguity between literal and figurative interpretation. Learners, a figure of speech is sometimes called a rhetorical figure or a locution. There is only one literary device which has been used over here in this poem, and that is alliteration, repetition of a sound. Try to concentrate on the line, but the smallest among them, he stumbled and staggered. But the smallest among them, he stumbled and staggered. Now over here, the consonant sound S in the line has been repeated, and that is alliteration. Coming to the form and structure of the poem has 8 stanzas of 4 lines each. All lines are of unequal length. The length is unequal, learners. The language is simple and can be easily read like a short story. There is no rhyme pattern, but the poem has a musical quality. There is no versification. It is written in free verse. David Roth has actually composed the lyrics to be sung. Learners, let us understand a little about Olympics. Olympic Games are held every 4 years. Athletes from all over the world come to a pre-decided venue to participate in their event. Special Olympics are created to help differently abled people to be able to participate in such international events, to make them feel they are part of the society. In India, we have a Special Olympics Bharat, which is based in Delhi and is a recognized body of the government. Learners, let's come to the salient points raised in the poem. Empathy helps us to enhance the quality of life. It radiates a positive vibration and gives strength to one another. Brotherhood feeling cannot be broken down by geographical boundaries. Differently abled people should not be isolated because of a handicap. Society should treat them as normal human beings. Collectively, we can be better winners rather than singly. There is strength in cooperation and collaboration, learners. So try to understand these points. These are very, very, very important for you to learn and understand. Learners, let us move to grammar section. Over here, the section is words used as nouns and verbs. Learners, the different parts of speech are the building blocks of the English language. They constitute thousands of words grouped into each section. Grammar is the rule book of English, and it sets out how these words are to be formed and what their structure is. Grammar also sets out the way the words from each part interact with words from other parts. Nouns and verbs are parts of speech which are vital to understanding English. Nouns are naming words as they name people, places, objects, feelings, animals, and ideas. Verbs are action words as they describe some action being performed. Nouns are classified into different types such as single, abstract, collective, and compound nouns. Learners, words used as nouns and verbs. I paddle my way to safety with the help of the paddle. The sentence is, I paddle my way to safety with the help of the paddle. What do you find in this sentence? The word paddle appears twice. The first time it appears in the sentence, it is used as a verb, and the second time it is used as a noun. There is no restriction on the number of times a word can be used in a sentence. If the sentence demands, you can use the same word as a noun and a verb repeatedly. To check if a word in the sentence is a noun, you could try using the words the, an, or a before the word and see if it is still making sense. If it does, then it is a noun. To check if a word in the sentence is a verb, you could try using the words I or you or any noun before the word and see if it is still making sense. If it does, then it is a verb. This works in the case of the sentence where paddle is used. There are many words in the English language which can be used both as nouns and as verbs. For example, the damage inflicted on the car was severe. In this sentence, damage, the word damage is a noun. Now, I'll give you certain other sentences and you have to find out where the damage has been used as verb. Number 1. The damage to the car was caused by collision with another vehicle. Next, the insurance agent accessed the damage to the car. Next, the son was afraid to show the car's damage to his father. Next, how could you damage my car? Roared the father. Now, over here, as I told you, that you need to find the word damage where it has been used as verb. the last sentence which I told you, how could you damage my new car? Roared the father. Over here, the word damage is a verb. In the all other options, damage is still a noun. Some more words that can be used both as noun and verb are escape, finish, and grin. Next sentence, the light was so bright that it hurt my eyes. Over here, light is a noun. In this sentence, light has been used as a noun. Now, I'll give you 4 sentences to find out where light has been used as a verb. Such a bright light would hurt anyone. Next sentence, I asked him to light the way with the help of a torch. Next, the light I shone helped him to cross the dark forest. Next, motorists should dim the light when crossing each other in the night. Over here, the second sentence, I asked him to light the way with the help of a torch. Over here, the light word is used as a verb. In the other options, light is still a noun. Some other words which can be used both as noun and verb are matter, influence, and hike. Next sentence, he could not keep the promise he had given to his mother. He could not keep the promise he had given to his mother. Over here, promise. The promise word in the sentence is a noun. Now, I'll give you 4 more sentences to find out where it has been used as verb. My mother was unhappy that I broke the promise I gave her. Next, the promise I gave my mother was broken. Next, I promised my mother that I'll be a good boy. Next, I broke the promise I had given my mother. Now, over here, the third sentence, I promised my mother that I'll be a good boy. Here, the word promise has been used as a verb. In all the other options, promise is still a noun. Some other words that can be used both as noun and as a verb are nail, loud, and insult. Learners, I hope you got some clue on the words that has been used as noun and verb both over here. I also hope you have understood the poem. Learners, I request you to read the lesson in the book before writing the exams. You have to look up the book. Read the poem once again to reinstate the ideas you have learned. Bye for now. Thank you.